Oh,
Good morning, everybody. I think it's good morning.
we're
It's good
live.
morning
Yep, we're
for
live. We're
us.
live.
Live 10:30 PST on the cloudy, overcast west coast of California. We are so excited to be here again. Season 2, Episode 9. I'm here with my esteemed co-host Kent Langley and myself, Kyle Hermans, and we are Digitized Live, which is all about unlocking your digital potential. How are you today, Kent?
I'm good. I came straight into this off of another live broadcast. On the last one, I was in the backstage, so I wasn't on camera. So I feel like I'm ready for that one, but not yet ready for this one. But nonetheless, here I am because you know what? The show must go on.
That's right. And as these mornings continue to, I definitely think our agendas have shifted. I know for myself, this was a 6 a.m. start this morning, just wrapping up a 3 hour digital strategic session. And I think we had people from South Africa, Australia, Canada, Mexico, and the US all on. So, like, trying to find the ideal time zone. And I think anybody that's watching here, if you are on a PST time zone, you generally get the short straw on a lot of different things.
I,
So,
Kyle, my day started at 5. We had
man,
2,400 registrants for a virtual conference with a digitized client and partner, and it was amazing. It was all about the future of work in finance and banking. It was really fascinating this morning, even from the backstage.
awesome. Awesome. So many amazing things. Well, we got an action packed show for you today. This is the finale of season two, episode 9. We're very excited. We cannot believe it. Season 1 had 8 shows, 8 or 9 shows. This one's got 9 shows as well. So we are almost hitting the 20 show mark. And we are very excited to bring you today's show, which is in the spirit of a finale, like a grand sort of ending. We wanted to kind of cover off on a couple different things. It's been a blistering few weeks for us in the digitization world, in the respective things we've been doing, in the different events and sessions we've been running. We're constantly learning a lot day in and day out as we see more and more people onboarding and integrating a digital self, a digital identity, really taking on and seeing businesses figure out how to stay efficient, effective, working, servicing their customers, getting all the really difficult things done when they cannot be in person and they're relying heavily on digital tools. So, 3 big areas that we wanted to cover off today were what have we been learning so far, kind of like a highlights and a wrap up of this particular season. The second is who's winning in this space. What is winning? What are the things that are winning versus what is not winning? What isn't working? What is working? Because as we move on to season 3, which will be action packed with more speakers going into some deeper into tools and techniques, that's where we end up today's show, which is talking about where do we believe that the future is going. Kent, myself, our digitized team, our partners, we are constantly connecting on a weekly basis, thinking about where is the future, what are we currently learning, what are the new obstacles and challenges to overcome, what are the new keys that we have to discover to unlock the next sort of rendition or possibility of where we can take these digital experiences. And so those 3 particular things, which is what have we learned so far, who is winning, and where do we think this is going so that we can prime and get set up for season 3, which we are also incredibly excited to launch. So, Kent, how does that show sound to you today?
Oh man, I'm always ready. I've been thinking about it since the pre-show this morning. Who is winning? Uh, it's so interesting because not only are we facing the full digitization of our global culture, we are doing that because we're in the midst of a global pandemic. We're experiencing an incredible change globally in the context of race, and I mean, could you really ask for anything more? And we have to all homeschool our children. So, could you really ask for anything more all at once? And so when I think about who is winning, I think about really kind of, you can watch it. Just watch the money, right? If you're running a digital events venue company and you've been doing well enough over the years, or you're in the right place at the right time, money is flying at you like mad. You have the appearance of winning because everything is growing so fast. I do think there's a lot of potential problems there and caveats for those companies that are experiencing that rapid onset. That's one of the very, very first things that come to mind is the people are getting the windfall of business and money. I really think this is a moment for them to take a deep breath and kind of, I guess, do the right thing. I don't know. What do you think, Kyle? Because I am definitely seeing this left and right.
Absolutely. I think that there's, well, for one, doing the right thing should have always been on someone's agenda.
One would think.
I mean, it's one of those things where I think what we've been addressing and what we're really trying to focus on is the concept of systemic change. And I think that technology, as we know, is fast tracking a lot of the systems and the processes and the tools that we work to get us more efficient and more effective. I think what's come along right now, which is fascinating, is it's poking at, well, what are we making more effective and efficient? What are we actually doubling down on? What are we scaling exponentially? What are we focusing on for growth? What is the foundation and the stability on which we are building these next sort of levels and chapters of the world? How people rise up together, how we get to do things together. I think what has happened is that architecture was unstable. I think it was very weighted or is very weighted towards not a full equality space. And I think technology and the tools and the connectivity, and when you don't have all the masks and all the lenses by which you can sort of hide behind anymore, and you have to be locked down, facing yourself, facing your family, facing your day to day, all those kinds of things, it starts to question what's at my foundation, what is at my core, what's a priority, what's important. And so this rapid increase of digitization, this rapid increase of us poking at the same time has been poking at, well, what are we scaling? What are we making most effective and efficient? And doing the right thing, and to go back to what you're saying, is bubbling up. Well, what is the right thing? And now there are massive conversations being unlocked left, right, and center, which are long overdue. And they've kind of been around, but we've been distracted, like most of the world's been distracted by other bright, shiny objects. Now, when we're in this particular case, which is, well, we can't really get back out there working together until we work together. We can't really solve this challenge until we solve it together. We can't really, heal from this COVID crisis or really eradicate, systemic inequality until we work together. And so when you have to go back to working together, you got to look at what works and what doesn't work. And I think doing the right thing is so critically important. So as much as this is complex and difficult and hard, I think this is the real work. Like this is the work we should be working on, which is really fascinating. What are your thoughts on that, Ken?
Well, I want to go deeper on that. So if we take the things that we're talking about, who's winning? What does it mean to do the right thing? And you said that there are lots of big conversations to have. Let's pick one. What is a really big conversation in that context, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I would say what's top of mind, and I think that was just something that came out of a session that we were running this morning, is this idea of equality. It's the equality of learning. It's how do you make sure everybody is operating with the same baseline. I think that's what equality really is. It's like, are we operating from the same baseline? Do we all have access to healthcare? Do we all have access to education? We were talking about empowering young leaders this morning, and it was really fascinating, which is that when we start to think about this global workforce that this company was focusing on, we were going through languages, we were going through geographies, we were going through countries of the people that would be participating, and there's a few hundred leaders that would be participating. And it was very interesting as you start to write it all out, you realize that we had to be more mindful of certain regions and certain geographies versus others, because not everybody has had the same equal access to everything. So not everybody was starting their learning journey on an equal footing. And that was such a light bulb moment, which is like, okay, so what is the baseline? What is the baseline from which we grow? What's the baseline technology? What's the baseline situation that people have available to them in order to get access to the learning? What is the baseline learning? What's the baseline language? What's the baseline in how you start to talk about concepts, how you start to share teachings, and then of course what's the baseline in terms of getting information, feedback, and ideas back from people so that we can start building together. So, I mean, the one that I'd love to kick off with, I hope that topic works for you too, Ken, is this idea of equality. And equality isn't just racial representation or gender representation. I also just think it's availability, it's
Wow.
access representation.
So, so digital equality, right? And so many of the things you just said, Kyle, are about communications. And so if you can't even get on the phone, I'll just say the phone, or the internet is a better example, how are you going to be equivalent or equal to the next person who now next to you doesn't even mean the same thing anymore, because the new geography is time zones.
Yeah.
So if you take into consideration time zones, you take into consideration access to internet. Let me give you a real example. Right now, in my studio, we are streaming this show out at a bit rate, right? So I'm using upload speeds far in excess of what most people have available to them on their internet service provider. Almost anywhere in the world. I'm fortunate, and I recognize that, and I certainly try to use it to its maximum benefit to help lots and lots of people broadcast and stream and reach people. But that's just one example where I have a privileged moment, or a privileged internet connection,
Okay.
if you will. Right? Yeah. Well, we're streaming today at 4K. It's the first time I've ever tried it. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm using a bit rate of over 23,000 bits per second, and that is 6 to 8 times what we would normally stream at in terms of total bandwidth utilization. It's really still just a fraction of the upload. So I'm just picking on a particularly technical bit to tap into what you're saying there, and saying, okay, so now how do you, so what's the baseline? The baseline is not that, right? The baseline is more along the lines, because I've brought hundreds of speakers into digital presentations just over the last few months. We need about 3 or 4 kilobits per second, or call it 3 to 5 megabits per second of upload and download speed for you to be digitally equivalent to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, I've had a very high-end speaker yesterday. Actually, sorry, that was even this morning. Last night, we're trying to get them through on the audio-video test, and they're using a laptop that, I swear, it must have been from the 80s. Did they even make laptops in the 80s? It was so old. And we ended up having to, crazy fast, next day, same day ship a newer iPad, just so they would have an updated piece of kit to get on this show and moderate a panel. Okay, so that person is very high up in terms of their position in corporate, but they were very low down in their position and being digitized.
Mm-hmm.
So those are just 2 examples that I'm thinking of based on what you said. This idea of digital equality is fascinating.
It really is. I love that. I wrote that down here. Digital equality, like one of the things that we have been dealing with over the last few weeks specifically, as we start to scope and scale larger corporate digital learning programs, because these were all in-person programs over months and months that all have to be connected to digital capabilities. Now, of course, the other thing is that not everybody could fly. Usually, corporate teams would allow their members to fly to a central location. They go to Vegas and be there for a week, and everyone learns together. Now it's dealing with all these different time zones. But one of the biggest challenges, and for anybody that's watching this that does internet security or is that part of corporate security, this is by no means digging at you guys, because you're doing a really, really good job, and you are keeping information and data safe But one of the things, much like if you think about San Francisco, when San Francisco launched Uber or launches any kind of new product, it's racing ahead of regulatory. It's racing ahead, ahead of lawmakers. And it's only once these things start to like operate in the world do then policies and regulations and everything else kind of have to catch up. They have to put either the kibosh on it, or they have to slow it down, or they have to kind of say, well, someone got hurt, somebody got killed, someone was unsafe, some data breach, something about our safety was compromised, so therefore we have to put a lot more things in play. Now, what's super fascinating about this is that I think when you talk about digital equality, I think equality when it comes to the world of digital is also just what are the boundaries by which people can jump on. If you're a young sort of more dynamic business like you and I own, Kent, we can do what we want. We're the CEOs of our companies. We get to we obviously, with our clients, we have to respect their data. We've got to protect their data. We've got to be very careful with the things that we do, especially with a lot of the work that we do is under NDA. And then for our own business, we get to push, we get to try, we get to trial things out. Not all massive organizations, which is just an organization of people and human capital, do they get to take those same quick decisions. They've got to be very careful about what gets in and what gets out, and competitive advantage and all those things. And I think digital equality is interesting because there's the equality of what you can actually do and what you cannot do based on the parameters of the laws and infrastructure. Like we worked with a banking organization recently, super deep into data protection. And so there's very, very little you can do. Very little. Like Slack, nope. Zoom, nope. Any instant message systems, nope. Nothing from the outside. Nothing from the outside. Wow. It has to be built on the inside. That kind of equality, even for a very powerful organization like that, limits the digital what they can actually do. It limits what they can do in a non-in-person environment. They have to figure things out around that, which is interesting. So I just, that's one big learning that I'm learning is some people are able to advance, some are not. But there's a little bit more flexibility that's showing up, because I think that these larger platforms, when we talk about who's winning, like Zoom got slammed, but they're slowly coming back. Today I noticed on the new versions of WebEx or Skype for Business, they've started to layer in more features and functions, and they're trying to get a little closer to Zoom and something a little more fun and playful and interactive. They're trying to fix their breakout rooms and all these kinds of things, but there's also still quite a bit of limitation. And I think those limitations are there because of how do you say that? How intense hackers have been to be able to take over video feeds or get in through interesting ways. And so that digital equality, apart from just having the money and the access and up-to-date software and hardware, is also that even if you've got all of the coolest stuff available to you, there's a strong possibility you can't use any of it because you're under the confines of security.
Well, it's policy, right? You don't even have to pick on security. It can be any type of policy that keeps you from being able to leverage the latest technologies, which in a world of accelerating exponential technologies with forcing functions like COVID-19 pandemics, you cannot afford as an organization to have arbitrary policies, even for good reasons, in place that hold you back from harnessing the power of technology that you need to move forward and that your people need to move forward. You also have to focus on education, because most people can't. I've just observed over time that most people seem to not be able to go super fast. They need time to ramp up on the new technologies. And the idea that you're part of the idea that you're sharing there, that corporate policy can be as much of a handicap as slow internet speeds or lack of equipment, or power outages or no air conditioning. If you hear a hum in the background on need today. It's because I had to install a portable air conditioning unit in the office here because I now have so many computers running that they were overheating. So it's super annoying because it's loud and I haven't quite been able to filter it out yet. Although I found a piece of AI software that supposedly can filter out all that background noise, and I'm going to test that on a future show. We'll see if you still hear the air conditioner. But I think that another thing we talked about that's related to this, Kyle, in the pre-show was you mentioned sort of this burst. It's not even a burst, it's like a tsunami of creativity that we're seeing at every level, from the individual all the way up to the city. I know cities that have proposed for decades to close down certain thoroughfares, streets, to make them walkable only. They've all done it now in the last 2 months. All of them. Cities are innovating. and that is saying something. I know this because I've worked with a bunch of cities on transformation projects at the Fast Track Institute under the OpenEXO banner. So I know what it takes to change a mindset in a city to drive innovation, and it is Herculean. It is the task of Sisyphus, right? Pushing the ball up the hill. So I don't know. Do you want to add a little bit more about the thoughts that you're sharing around creativity in this context, where we are trying to achieve a certain digital equality? Didn't even think about that before we started the show today. So it's incredible to have that conversation. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that creativity and innovation is exploding because we're in a confrontation. So many people have been painted into a corner. Businesses have had to change and adapt to what they're working on. Like a couple of the products and services that we're the most busy with right now is North Star, purpose work, vision work, strategy work, which is looking out. It's looking out to say, well, what do I do with the current circumstances and conditions that I have? Auditing, going back inside the business, saying what is working, what isn't working. For those, which is obviously terrible news, is those that have had to contract as a company. They've had to downscale workforces. They've had to, you see market shrinking. You see all those kinds of things happening around us. And then they're saying, well, I still want to service my customers. I still want to be a best place to work for my employees. I still want to be able to retain my talent. I still want to keep growing my brand. I still want to make impact in the world. I still want to solve massive challenges. How do I now do that with these current conditions? Because so many normal factors were removed. That requires innovation and creative thinking. It requires us to go back inside and look at the conflicts that we're facing. It requires us to go in and start to look at the polarities that are coming up, the conflicting trends, the new trends that are advancing us or pushing us in directions that we didn't expect to be in less than 6 to 12 months ago. All of that is requiring people to get inside and start taking a look at innovation and creativity. Now, on top of that as well, as people have had to get very creative because they're saying, oh, well, now I can't rely on meeting people in person. I can't rely on going to an office. I can't rely on traveling out to see my customers. I can't rely on all the typical business practices that most industries have been founded on for the last 100 years, or more. All of that just gets taken away. Switch off. Light switch gone. Total darkness. You have to rethink all of your strategies. You have to rethink the way you do things while still holding true to the core fundamentals of your business. That's innovation and creativity. So the explosion has been very interesting because and everybody's at a different level with this, because big operational organizations often didn't really create the space or the time to practice innovation or creativity or pushing the boundaries. What's new news? They were in operational scale. Other companies that have been very used to pushing the boundaries, like you think about San Francisco, you watch how this city is just contracting now. Everyone's getting out because it's expensive and because workforces can be remote. That in itself is innovation and creativity. And now you see these new trends popping up and these new offers and the new way to recruit talent and the new way to keep jobs and the new places people can move to. The amount of executives or young executives that we know in the city who are out in the Bay having their own apartments, building their startups, have now moved back home to really unique, interesting middle America states to move back with their parents, and they're running their offices from bedrooms. And it's working. They're scaling, they're growing. You watch the stock market, you see all the big technology based companies, their shares are soaring because if you have had the ability to be in a beta mindset, and I know you're going to have a lot to say on this one, Ken, but being in a beta mindset, or having some agility, or having almost a software engineering stage gate type of approach, or this fast learning, or just getting it out quickly, testing and learning in real time when it's not perfect, this kind of beta activity, you're going to be winning. You're going to be winning because you'll have creativity and innovation a little more ingrained. For those less so, they're starting this brand new revisit of innovation and creativity inside of their organization. So the explosion is immense. I mean, I'm very excited about it, but it's also freaking people out. And now the idea is, well, what platforms can I now harness remote ideas? How do I keep them safe inside my business? How do I move these things forward? How do I start to implement them? So things, as you and I, like, we're on Miro, we're on Mural, we're on Google Docs, we're on Microsoft Teams, we're on all these different things that are just blowing up. Asana, whatever these these platforms and project management platforms, that creativity is getting people realizing that they can work in a different way. But let me pause there because I know you've got some thoughts on this idea of innovation and agility and beta testing, and I think that's the heart of where a lot of this is coming from.
So many. Maybe that's all of season 3.
It could be because it is about how do you unleash creativity.
I will say 3 key things. Let's see if I can hold this. So, number 1, I am very fortunate to be an advisor to some startups. And so while a lot of the organizations you mentioned just now have been around for a while, they're also going through rapid, new, innovative change because they must. They're in a good position to do so and reap almost like this windfall. And it's hard to talk about a windfall when things are so hard for so many, but it is a shift, right? The flow is shifting, and we have to be incredibly flexible, incredibly agile, implement processes like the concepts around lean, build, measure, learn. Maybe throw a little bit of the perfectionism out the window because you got to move fast. You can always improve it, but if you never do it, you'll never have anything to improve upon, will you? So these are just sort of philosophies, and I know that I tend to push people a lot in these ways. I just happen to have on my Open EXO jacket today, or my EXO jacket today. This one's a classic. It's the old logo. But this is about building a community that's nearing 6,000 people that are world-making, future-making. They're future-making transformers that are all out there living all of those attributes that I just mentioned and many, many more tied to the model. I have 2 startups that I'm working with. Both of them have created very different niches, but both have created platforms that help people to harness and implement ideas and do so very quickly in an iterative way, and both harness artificial intelligence to augment the user of the system in order to help them go faster, be more complete. Think of it like Google, the thing in the Google email when it starts to suggest now the next few words you should type in your email. What if you're doing that for an idea? Or what if you're doing that for trying to marshal the talent you need for a specific challenge or thing that you want to solve? These are the kinds of things that I am seeing all day, every day. But then there's a flip side to some of this as well, and I have a new facial feature that I did not always have before. I have these circles under my eyes, and that's because, as I said, geography is the new time zone, and I'm finding myself up and down at all hours of the day, effectively living a polyphasic lifestyle between family and work, and not just one work anymore, but many works. I don't have one job. I don't know that I've ever had one job for a very long time, but that's just me. But now this is normal for a lot of people. And so when I think about frameworks like EXO, I think about startups like Cartito and s2e, which, again, full disclosure, I do advise those companies. And I think about the work that you do, Kyle, at Be Courageous and helping organizations culturally adapt. The work that I do, the vast majority of my work on a day-to-day basis is helping people employ the technologies they need to give those very changing cultures in real time and master and employ those technologies to drive impact. Um, I just, the pace of change I'm seeing and the reason for the circles is because everybody's also a little bit tired. And I think that this is really interesting because when did this hit? Right? It hit us basically, I mean, it hit most of the world in, if you want to say late February, early March. And now it's July. It's really not been very long. Roughly a calendar quarter of this. And we're tired. We've had enough. We want a break. Oh my gosh. I mean, we're just one quarter into something that by most, if you go from conservative to aggressive, you'll find projections from, oh, it's going to all be back to normal in 3 or 4 months, to it could be 2 or 3 years, to it's never going back to normal, right? These are kind of the what we're looking at, and I sort of think we're in a marathon, not a sprint here, and we do all have to now figure out how to slow down almost a little bit, maybe be a little bit more tolerant if things aren't happening at the pace we sometimes think they should, or even maybe you think they did before, but what you probably will find out is they never did. You're actually going faster now. You just haven't quite, your brain hasn't caught up. These are very complex things, and that's why I always enjoy our conversations around the impacts on culture and work, Kyle, because, and I think that this is where we start to head. We're, just to do a quick kind of transition here into the last third of the show today, you and I were talking about what's season 3. I can't even believe we're talking about season 3 for Digitized Live. We literally, this will be our 17th episode of Digitized Live today. And that is mind-bending to me. What are we going to do next, Kyle? We talked about it. Why don't you kick into that? Respond to any of that you care to close us out from this section. And then let's go on in and talk about where we're going to go next. And if anybody's out there listening, I do see all of the live viewers today. I know a lot of you watch our show afterwards. Please hit us up in the comments. We answer them. I just posted a whole new video for a Zumba instructor who watched one of our old videos a couple of days ago on an advanced configuration idea that they had because she was having trouble with feedback of her own voice. And she was just, it was like 2 little clicks. So I recorded the whole thing just for her and posted it in reply to the comment. So look at this channel. Do please click the like and the notify button. Share it if you think somebody else would benefit. But most importantly, over all of that is let us know what you need next. And so, Kyle, back over to you on all the, I just said a lot of stuff, so please pick however you like. And then let's segue into what we're thinking about for the next season of Digitized Live.
As we move into the season 3, which is amazing, and it just goes to show that I think we've been 20 something weeks. It's just just pounding on this every week, and it's again just bringing you back to the essence of what the show is about. Digitized Live, or Digitized, is unlocking your digital potential. And what we meant by that is we saw early that there's a massive gap between what people think digitization is and then what it really is, and also just the distance between what we can do about it, what we can own, and how we can start to integrate more digital opportunities into our own lives. Digitizing ourselves, digitizing our business, because things were moving very, very quickly, and we're seeing so many things get disrupted. COVID, forcing function. New conversations around the world, forcing function. A lot of this is allowing us to start pushing on these abilities to transform ourselves, reinvent ourselves, disrupt our businesses. And we have the tools, we have the capabilities. Kent and I talked about this, I think, in season 1. We were saying, imagine that this situation had happened for the world and we didn't have internet and we didn't have technology. It would just be, I was trying to wrap my head around just how crazy this would be. But what we have right now is the capability to lean on things and lean on tools, the ability we can innovate, we can create, we can imagine, we can vision, we can forecast, we can see and design the future we want because someone out there right now is working on stuff that could actually advance all of us. And so as we move into season 3, a big thing for us is, where is this going? Where is all this going? Where do we believe it's going? And how do we start to bring some guest speakers in, some folk to watch and to talk with us about where this is going, where this could be going financially for a business, where this could be going infrastructure, about workforces, teamwork, what we can create, things we can solve, impact that we can continue to make. Is at the heart of the work for Digitized and for Kent and myself is making massive impact. That's huge. But where do we where do we think this is going? And part of this is, I think that the level of skills that we need is needing to increase in the areas of communication, in creativity, in innovation, in autonomy. And what I mean by autonomy is the freedom to be able to make decisions, network-led leadership, cohorts, collaborative groups, swarming teams, freelancing systems. As I couldn't even remember what that word was that you just mentioned when you were saying about having many different jobs. You used the word polygy or
No,
something
I
something.
said I'm a parallel entrepreneur.
Parallel
Yeah,
entrepreneur. Yeah.
yeah.
So one of the things there is that we are all wearing so many more hats. And if you still want to have a home life and a family life and an entrepreneurial life and make impact, that tiredness that I think that Kent was describing is we're hitting the capacity of the way we think we need to do things and the way they've always been done. And part of tiredness is that whenever we run creative sessions, we notice that there's actually a statistic, there's actually a neurological statistic that if we all get into a room together and create together, we have about 4 hours until our creative juices run out.
Hmm.
People think they can just create all day long. They can't actually. So really good facilitation and really good balance in a creative session is the difference between, all right, let's get in and really ideate and create. All right, let's then operationalize and select. Let's discuss what we've just thought about. It's a little different from hardcore creativity. But hardcore creativity and innovation, if you're having to wake up and invent yourself and think about new things every day and figure new strategies out and get really creative and do it under pressure, do it under stress, do it under survival situations,
Yeah.
man, it wears us out. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing it wrong. What it means is that you're giving it your all. So for everybody watching, we're celebrating you for driving and surviving through this time. But the next one for the future skills going forward is going to be about balance. It's going to be about managing and maintaining our energy. And Kent is right. I'd even add the word ultra in front of marathon. I think we're beyond a marathon. We might be running ultra marathon, like the 100-mile, 200-mile races. This is not a sprint. This is something where you've got to conserve your energy. You've got to conserve your creativity. You got to conserve how you get things done and built and made. You got to be way more forgiving on yourself, but you also have to show up with way more consistency and necessity and courage and fortitude and purpose and impact into the day, because you get to make this what this is, or all these conditions are just gonna they're just gonna squash you.
That's right, and I love that this is bigger than a marathon. It's the 200-mile race. Is that even a thing? I don't even know. The
It
I would
is.
I would never run 200 miles if I could help it. But the
I'm on a
the
300-mile challenge right now, by the way.
yeah, no, I remember you telling me you couldn't leave your chair for a
I
day the
couldn't
other
leave
day.
my
Yeah,
chair.
yeah. So, but I think that the key is that you are moving. You didn't stop. You didn't go backwards and run back home instead of going off the starting line. So no matter what that pace is, you've got to keep moving. And I am seeing so many companies, Kyle, so many companies and so many people that think this is a vacation or think they can just sort of hunker down and wait it out and not do anything. They're not moving. I am worried for those companies and I'm worried for those people. And I care about a lot of them, so I am constantly on their case, telling them to move. And when it comes to where we started here, this sort of thinking about the next show as we wind down in this last 5 minutes, I made this shot. So let me bring this up real quick, Kyle. I did this while you were talking.
Awesome. That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, as we wrap up season two, thank you to all the viewers. Thank you to everybody that's been supporting, participating, giving feedback, all the subscribers that are connecting, to all the viewers that are watching on all the different platforms right now. We thank you. We thank you for the support. We thank you for the questions. We thank you for those that are feeding back, that are implementing the stuff. We love seeing all the uptick in views on YouTube. Please go back into the channel. We've got tons of content there. There's just hundreds of hours of content there, and it's our pleasure to be serving you with the information of the things that we lead, that we're learning, and to leave you with tools, techniques, and tips. And what's really important is if you've got very specific questions about digitization, moving from analog to a digital world, how do you thrive with all of the crazy going on using digital capabilities, you can ask us in the normal chat boxes here. You can email us, you can connect to us, you can do it anonymously, you can do it publicly. But what we really try to do is take some of these sound bites and then be able to bring these answers back or produce videos around that are in response to the things that you need. So thank you very much. We celebrate you. Please keep hitting that subscribe button. Share this with other folk that you believe could really benefit from these conversations and that could benefit from the tools and techniques that we provide. And we will continue to bring really, really big ideas, thoughts, learnings in real time to you. And we're very excited to kick off season 3, where we will start to dimensionalize these conversations, get deeper, bring those experts in. And then as we go deeper on tools, you'll see, as Kent mentioned, there's certain tools that we like to go deep on that are really helping to empower you and your organizations forward. So once again, it's been such a pleasure to connect with you. Kent, any closing thoughts? Thank you so much again for another great show.
No, thanks for a whole great season. Very much appreciate it, Kyle. Still can't believe we've done 2 already, and I'm just looking forward to next week. That's all. So can't look forward to just look forward to doing it again, and let's go find those guests.
All right. So
All right.
for everybody watching, remember, there's a digital version of you waiting to be unleashed. So unlock your digital potential. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and go get it.